Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Abiola Kimbade, and I'm thrilled to be your host. We are going to dive into my experiences in the tech world, specifically with Azure and DevOps, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces as well. Welcome, Rosen. I'll be sharing some key lessons that we've learned along the way and things that I wish are done differently, especially specifically with a global view in mind. And this webinar is going to be hosted by me and my friend and speaker, Dipanshu. So we'll be starting the meet and greet while waiting for other people to join. Okay, so hello, Dipanshu. How are you doing today?
Hola, hi all. Very good morning, good afternoon to each one of you. Hope everyone's doing fine, good.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Dipanshu.
Good to see some good people around here. Please turn on your camera if possible. That would make it more interactive. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Dipanshu. So, in the meet and greet session, I'll be introducing Dipanshu. Dipanshu is a Microsoft MVP and a lead systems engineer at EPAM System. He's also a Microsoft community champion. That's why I met him, and he has a wealth of experience in global cloud architecture. I'd like him to say a few words about himself before we start.
Thank you so much, Abiola, for your kind words. So I think so, just adding on to what Abiola said, yeah, I've been an active member of the community from 3 to 4 years, particularly working in building solutions in cloud and DevOps area. I have around 8 to 9 years of experience, exclusive experience working with cloud and DevOps front. So yeah, that's more or less about me. Currently, I'm working for EPAM Systems, one of the US-based MNCs and one of the leading company in digital product engineering. So yeah, that's short introduction, and basically I'm from India. Just for that's a bit about myself.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Dipanshu. For me, I'm Abiola. I'm a senior DevOps engineer. I'm also an Azure community champion and a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm currently working at Telnix in the US remotely. I previously used to work at MentorMate. One of my colleagues is also here, Rosen. And I'm here to more or less talk about my experiences, what I felt I could have done differently in collaboration with Dipanshu, and how to be for someone who is new coming into the technology space, things that you should do, things that you should change, and what you should work on within the community space. And if you want more information about the speaker, yes, I have Dipanshu's link for his contributor stories on Microsoft. I'll share that in the chat as well. I have his LinkedIn and his personal website as well. So let's get this started. So we're still waiting for a few more people. Maybe we should give it about a minute. What do you think, Dipanshu?
Yeah, I think so. Let's start. Wait for a minute. We will start sharp within a minute, by 3:35. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So while we give it a minute, if you have questions or you specifically want to communicate with either me, the speaker, probably during the meeting or afterwards, you can also drop it in the chat. My email is there. If you have any questions you want to route to the speaker as well, even though he's quite busy, of course, I would send those questions to him as well. So you can, I'll put my email in the chat as well for that. So, yeah. So it's 11:05, so I guess we can kick this off. So the first thing we're going to talk about is from a beginner standpoint, learning Azure from zero base. So basically what we are saying is we want to be able to describe how we can be able to set up a roadmap for absolute beginners within the Azure space. And the quick overview is you start from the fundamentals, hands-on practice, certification and specialization, and engaging with the community. So I would talk about starting with the fundamentals. So In terms of starting with the fundamentals, as any cloud engineer or Azure specialist, Azure administrator, systems engineer, platform engineer as well, one of the things that I feel I missed out at the beginning was due to the fact that I started as an Azure administrator, there were some bits and pieces of the fundamentals that I missed out on at the beginning, which I learned from experience and personal development as well. So you have to understand basically the cloud computing basics, service models, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and basically Azure core offerings. Because even, for instance, if you're going for an interview, for example, and you're being interviewed by maybe Dipanshu or I, or maybe someone like Roshan, they are going to ask you about the core fundamentals every single time. They can make you, they can ask you what infrastructure as a service is. That's IaaS. And if you goof there at that moment in time, you probably have lost that opportunity. So always knowing the fundamentals of any specialization you are in is quite important as well. So hands-on practice as well, that doesn't need much introduction, but of course there are free tools that you have within the Azure space that you can always use. There's the Azure free tier. We have where you can explore services like virtual machines for up to a year with terms and conditions, Azure App Services, storage accounts. And for me personally, the recommendation is always to use the Microsoft Learning part. So I would let Dipanshu also talk about his own experience from learning in terms of a zero base from an absolute beginner. So Dipanshu.
Yeah, thanks, Abiola. So yeah, so let's suppose if you want to start off your journey with the cloud, which is more of the emerging technologies these days, and how to go it from the zero. That's a very good question, and I would say that's a very good experience I could share as I started from the zero itself. So I think so. The first is try to understand the basic terminologies. Try to go with some basic certifications before and follow the learn path in the Microsoft. So if you want to build a lot of gain in the cloud, you have to get familiar with the Learn token. Learn is a platform from the Microsoft where they give a full detailed documentation, explanation along with the labs and so on for learning and grabbing cloud. So this is how I started. I started uh, seeing these Learn documents, going through after them, and complete some trainings and learnings over there. So this is the first step one should take when he or she has to start their journey with the cloud and specifically with Azure cloud. So yeah, learn.microsoft.com should be your first thing. After that, you can plan for certifications, of course. And when you go with the cloud, basic thing should be you should know what is different type of offerings like AAS, PaaS, SaaS. But when I say AAS means infrastructure as a service. When I say PaaS, I mean platform as a service. When I mean SaaS means software as a service. So these are some offerings provided from the cloud side to the consumers all over the world. So you should know a basic differentiation between them, that this is a AAS offering, this is a PaaS offering, and this is a SaaS offering. And of
Yeah.
course, of course, what Abiola said, doing certifications, and that's what, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so for instance, in terms of certifications and specialization, there's the AI skills fest that is going on, which is also a free seminar or webinar, I know I'll call it, where you have dedicated tools to learning AI. For instance, that's something you could join as well. When you use learn.microsoft.com, you always find out that there are curated paths which you can use for every role that you want to learn. And it's important that at that point in time, whatever you are learning, it has to have a goal. For instance, if you are saying you want to learn Azure within 6 months, you want to learn within a year, using these parts can always help you. So I think the last part, which is also important, is engaging with the community. When you're talking about engaging with the community includes fellow learners. So if you are learning Azure or you want to become a cloud engineer from the very beginning, at that moment in time, you always have to learn from your colleagues, your friends, new people, and things like that. So for instance, Dipanshu is a Microsoft MVP. When I got into the Azure community myself, He's one of the people that I looked at, his contributions, how he helped people and others, and I learned from that as well. Also, when I was working at MentorMate, for instance, Rosen was someone else that was a senior colleague of mine, and learning as well how they troubleshoot issues, how they make things work. So those are things that you also have to put into your learning part. So it's important to know that you can't be an island of knowledge when you're learning, and always have to use the community. Where you see webinars, you try and join, ask questions on how they improve, and which is one of the purposes of this webinar, to understand how we can be able to share from our mistakes in the past and how we can be able to move forward. So in terms of engaging with the community, for me personally, I contribute a lot to Microsoft Q&A. It's something I do to learn from other people's experiences and also to improve mine. So sometimes when you go on Microsoft Q&A, I most often times discover that I find out new things that are totally different from what I used to know in the past, and it makes me research and learn as well. So Dipanshu, what else do you also have something to contribute in terms of engaging with the community as well? How it has improved your career, and yeah.
Yeah. So whatever you said, that truly I agree with it. But what else I could add on? So community is also something makes you incorporate some best practices, incorporate some of the lesson learned. So let's suppose in your day-to-day life, if you need to adopt some solution or some technology, you don't need to do it whole R&D or whole thing from the scratch. You have a fellow mates from your community. You could have a lesson learned from them. You could take out their experiences, refer those solutions and artifacts, and implement. So there are two main benefits. First thing, it saves your time. Let's suppose for implementing an activity, it takes 10 hours. You will be only doing it for 5 hours. Secondly, it also enriches a holistic development, that you could have a lot of things going interacting. Means it's not necessary whatever Abiola has faced some issue, I also has to face. No, I will take a lesson learned, will skip those, and will not implement that, and will implement the best of it. So that's how it works. So these are some two good benefits I have faced. Sorry, I have particularly incorporated in my IT career, and it has really benefited me a lot because I don't have to build things from the scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of talking about the core Azure concepts, I use roadmap.sh a lot. So I prepared a roadmap for you guys that you could also use. So this is just, I'll share that as well in the link. This talks about the core Azure concepts, cloud service models, which we've already discussed briefly, of course, this is not a technical deep dive. Cloud deployment models as well, the private, public, and hybrid cloud, Azure regions, availability zones, resource groups, and also when you're starting Azure, for instance, you always have to learn the core Azure concept. These are the things that you would need to learn from the very beginning. So if you understand how these things work, for example, edge points of presence, how they relate to everything that you're doing, then at that moment in time, you have a solid base and you can start. So there's also ARM, Azure subscriptions, management groups, Azure governance as well. So Dipanshu, I have a question for you myself. So in terms of the Azure fundamentals, when you were going through learning the Azure fundamentals, is there anything that stood out for you that you feel you could have done differently yourself?
For going with the fundamentals, you mean?
Yeah, in your learning process, in terms of learning the basics of systems engineering, for instance, your current role. Are there things that, like, maybe name one particular thing that stood out for you that you feel you could have done different? Because now you're a lead systems engineer, so you have gone through the process of learning and all. So is there something that you feel you could point out to our audience?
Yeah. So what I feel is like, do not take shortcuts. Follow the track. Follow the path. Like, go from the basics. If your basics are strong, I believe you could your advanced things could be you could build up blocks on it. That's what I feel, because I don't have a much experience. Let's say 15, 16 odd years of experience. But what I always stayed is that I always made my basics very strong, so that even if I need to do some advanced level of solution building or architecture, I know where to start from. yeah, I will take some help. I will take some reference of community, take some help from my colleagues, my fellow workers. But I know my basics are strong, so I never skip that. Wherever I build my skill set, I always follow to stick to that basics. Yeah, after that you can particularly choose the direction and you can particularly take the actions accordingly. But yeah, one key good advice I always give it: if your basics are strong, I believe you can do wonders, one whatever way, in whatever the technology space you are working on.
Totally agree. Thank you for that. So based on that, I think to add to what he said, for me, in terms of having the basics strong, I think at the very beginning, I would say my basics, I had to sometimes also learn on the job as well for me, and improve after I'm going back to learn the basics. So for someone that is learning new, I would say it's always best to try and start the learning from the very beginning, like Dipanshu, and don't take shortcuts. So when Dipanshu says shortcut, the typical example of shortcuts is, for instance, you're watching a 2-hour YouTube video and you just watch the YouTube video. You don't really practice. For instance, if they say deploy an Azure virtual machine, you just read through it. Yeah, go ahead, Dipanshu.
Yeah, for an example, what I could say, let's suppose you need to learn Kubernetes. So the
Yeah,
basic lies in the Docker and containers. So if you don't
yeah,
know Docker and containers, you cannot go with Kubernetes. Let's suppose
yeah,
you need to have a cloud architecture. So you need to know the basics: what is computing, what is storage, what is networking, and how these things interact and make a cloud solutions. So these things you should first gain some good hands-on and expertise, and then take up the next ladder. So that's what I was explaining in terms of not skip the shortcut. So if you want to go to that technology, you have to take the prerequisites and then go to that next level.
yeah. Totally agree. And Linux as well. Yeah. So
Of course.
yeah, so when I and Dipanshu were discussing, we talked about a 6 months Azure study plan. So when we're talking about a 6 months Azure study plan, of course, this is not the be it all and end of everything, but this is something that you could also maybe key into as a way to learn. Obviously, not everything. You can't learn everything within 6 months. Some people have 16, 15 years experience and they just still don't know everything. In terms of learning technology, every day is a revolving door. There are new changes every day. You have to learn. So, for instance, in my company, currently we have Azure AI agents, or we have AI agents that could start a Jira ticket from the beginning, create a pull request, and the only thing that you are left to do is to review the pull requests and see if AI has basically not fucked up, because you know that AI sometimes makes mistakes and all. So if we are getting to the stage where AI is able to handle full tickets on their own, so what that also means is you also have to adapt. You also have to be part of those that would be able to review pull requests created by AI. Because for you to review pull requests created by AI, you also have to have a level of understanding and the application, because AI generally sometimes doesn't apply context. It just does it the way it understands, but you always have the context of the environment. And so when you review, so it's something that is amazing to me that AI has gotten to a stage where it could be able to take Jira tickets, starting from the beginning to the total end, and just give you as a senior engineer to review. So when we are talking about the 6 months Azure study plan, for instance, we're talking about the fundamentals. So the fundamentals is what we've been talking about for a while. We're talking about understanding the core Azure services, Azure virtual machines, web apps, Azure storage, Azure SQL. So if you want to go into DevOps, you have to master core Azure DevOps. For instance, you have to understand how pipelines work, the basics of every single thing. You have to understand YAML, you have to understand Linux basics, CI/CD basics, and all. So one course which is always useful in terms of the Azure end of things is AZ900. It's a certification, but there's also a learning plan that will teach you the basic things, which include OPEX, CAPEX costs, Azure cost management, and the basic things. So the second part, if you're, in my own opinion, if you're also looking to learn over a 6 month period, if you have months 2 to 3 where you can learn, go ahead, please, Mr. Tyrell.
Bjorn, thank you for this. I just have a sort of a quick question because for someone who is not you know doesn't really have a tech background like that, are there roles related to DevOps that that do not really require uh experience in coding, but something more of more of strategy, governance, or process improvement, something not so technical? Are there roles
Ye-
related to that in this sector?
So I would say yes and no. I don't know if Dipanshu wants to take this. I would say yes and no. Um, So let me update this. So I'll say yes and no. So if you want to come into technology, I think the whole base of this webinar is helping people who don't have like any experience in Azure to get into Azure. So this immediately proves that you can come in. So for instance, my background is mechanical engineering. I had nothing to do with Azure when I was in university. It's something that you could decide if you come from a non-technical background. There are roles that you could actually do. So, for instance, there's project management. For instance, project management, within project management, yeah, most times the one leading the team, creating tasks, creating your plan for 6 months, 5 months, 7 months. There's also technical support, or there's also non-technical support as well. So in those two roles as well, you only need to master, for instance, as a support engineer, you only need to master the service that um, you are going to be supporting. So for instance, I worked as a technical support engineer once, and I supported Azure Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory is just a very little portion. Of course, it's a big portion in Azure, but it's a very little portion of the whole Azure ecosystem. So in that instance, you can tailor your role to master what you need to learn for that particular role you want to get into. There are non-technical roles that you could get into. Like I mentioned, support. There's support can be technical, it can be non-technical. There's project management. In fact, in terms of technical roles as well, there are some that you could start from an internship-based role where you could more or less learn the basics while you're also learning on the job. Yeah. So Dipanshu, do you have anything to add to that
Oh yeah,
as well?
what you said, I agree. But yes, so even if I talk about myself, like today, I also started with a background from electrical and communications, like electronics and communication. So
Yeah.
when I joined and started in the IT, I don't know what is a ping is, like a simple ping and something. But yeah, gradually, and then I started on taking up things. And technically, you just give some time, you just do some studies, you do some kind of R&D and stuff that, and you gain that experience and then you implement. So it does not matter whatever background you come from. It is all the will and willingness to take that and take to a certain level. What I believe is like if you want to take even a technical, non-technical, that's fine. But what 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 you can give to that, like how much effort you can put it for that, that matters the most. What I feel. That's what my experience and my belief is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dipanshu. So I don't know if that answers. So in terms of specific roles as well that you could learn, there are Azure sales representative or solution engineer, where you basically have to just understand what the product is and demo it to people. There are account managers as well. Account managers basically manage relationships between Azure clients and Microsoft, for instance. I mentioned project managers. You can also do, yeah, I think there are documentation specialist roles as well. You mentioned customer support, and there's billing, Azure billing and cost management as well. You can work as an Azure billing engineer. What that means is you manage the billing, for instance, the payments, invoices, and stuff like that within the Azure space. So it's not a full technical role, but you just still have to understand the basics of Azure to be able to work in a billing role. So those are examples of roles that you could get into with very little Azure experience. So yeah, um, talking about months 2 to 3, we are talking about if you are going to continue on your Azure DevOps plan. At this point in time, expected that okay, you'll be diving deep into Azure boards. Azure boards is very similar to a project management tool where you can have your Kanban boards and things like that, and be able to view all the tasks that you have. For instance, as an example, it can do many more things. Then you have your repos, your pipelines, artifacts, test plans. Those are basic things that you need to learn within the Azure DevOps services. Then you can then start maybe the AZ400 track as well. But one thing that is key, which I think I myself and maybe many of us didn't do as much at the beginning, is at the very beginning, the most important thing, what every interviewer wants to see is what project have you done. So when you want to prepare for, let's say you have a 6-month plan, the best thing is to most possibly have as many projects as possible that you can do within the free space. You can deploy Azure services, you can know how to, because once you deploy all these things, you can be able to show them and describe how you deploy them rather than going into an interview or going into a new role and telling them, oh, okay, you've read this, you've read that. In the tech space, one important thing is always to know how to manage the services, hence by deploying and learning. For example, like in the PowerPoint, we talked about creating a build pipeline for a sample app. It's a bit technical, so there's no point in going deep, but even in month 2 to month 3, something you can use as a project as well. Then automation and infrastructure as code. That's also something that is very important. ARM templates, Terraform, DevOps is generally about automation as well. Then we have projects and certification as well. You can build full CI/CD pipelines, and it's important to dedicate as much time as possible while you can. So that's basically a 6-month DevOps study plan. So resources I found useful on YouTube, I always like Free Code Camp. So there's an Azure, I'll share all these resources in the chat as well. There are Azure DevOps engineer expert certifications which you could use. They are for the fundamentals. There are real-time projects. There's the Azure DevOps Lab, which I and Dipanshu discussed. So with the Azure DevOps Lab, you could be able to practice as well. And there's the Azure Demo Generator. Dipanshu, I don't know if you could talk more about the Azure DevOps Lab as well. So if someone wants to learn Azure DevOps from a new base or understand what they are talking about or what we are talking about here.
Yeah. So Azure DevOps Lab is particularly a end-to-end solution where you can do it a real-time hands-on. So let's suppose you need to build a project, and let me open this for you and show you that.
Yeah, please.
Can you paste the link in the chat?
Yeah, I will.
So I will just walk through and give a short explanation how things work and how we can particularly do all those.
Okay, would you want to share your screen to just show?
Yeah. Have you pasted in the chat?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I got it. No issues.
Okay.
Let me share my screen. Okay, let me know if my screen is visible.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay, right? You can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is AzureDevOpsLab.com, which is an entire, you can say it is an entire platform where you can do all kind of labs in real time. So let's suppose whatever the task and whatever the activity we particular do in a real time in production, we can do the lab for that day. Let's suppose if you want to configure a pipeline as a code with YAML, this is a basics, right? So we have a lab for this. So you can just particularly do all exercise. Just follow this. This is very self-explanatory. And if you ask me, I have done this 5 years back, all the labs, and it has made me master in Azure DevOps. So you don't have many labs. It's around 20, 25. I can tell you most important ones: configuring pipeline as YAML, enabling continuous integration with Azure pipelines, then enabling continuous delivery with Azure pipelines, then your artifacts and test planning and management with Azure. These are some, and then this last one, Azure DevOps end-to-end concepts. If you do these 5 to 6 right, you will get the entire understanding of how this Azure DevOps work, how we can create CI/CD and pipelines. So whenever if anyone says, do you have experience with CI/CD? Yes, you can say, yeah, I have built end-to-end pipelines in Azure DevOps. And even if you haven't done it in the real time, you can claim that you have done, because you have done the lab, which is quite exactly the same thing we do in the production. So my whole recommendation is, if you want to build up the skill on Azure DevOps, please particularly follow this lab end to end. And even later on, if you have any questions, you can come along with that to Abiola or to me. We would be great to help you on that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So to add is also free.
Yeah, it's totally free. You just have to follow the instructions and do it.
Okay, so back to the sharing of the screen. So in terms of a retrospective, things that I feel we do basically, I'll start speaking publicly sooner, because when you speak publicly, so there's always that student or someone who is always going to want to trip you up and make you learn more. So you always get questions that you're not sure of, that you'd always have to say, okay, I'll get back to this and all. So there are always things like that. So speaking publicly really helps in terms of learning technology. It helps you learn the things that you feel you knew, but you never knew. Then prioritizing networking, for instance. There are many people on this call, of course, in the email thread and all, which you could network with as well as possible. And you'll be surprised. There are so many people within the tech space that are willing to help you, even for free. So most times, you have to understand that finances sometimes may be limited, so you may not be able to fork out $150, $100 to learn services, but you can always, there's always YouTube for free, there's free code camp, there are various tools that are for free. I know several of my friends who do a lot of free services. So yeah. Apart from that as well, we also have, in terms of breaking out globally in tech, I think that's one of the reasons why the Dipanshu is here as well. So breaking out globally in tech. So the world has become a global village now. So the physical limitations that used to be there, that, okay, I'm in Nigeria, I must work in Nigeria. I'm in India, I must work in India. I'm in Europe, I must work in Europe. Those physical limitations are being broken. Fine. There are some companies where there are GDPR laws where, of course, you cannot employ or you don't want your data outside of that country. So, of course, there are still limitations. But I think as a goal, breaking out globally in tech is something that would take your career up in leaps and bounds. So to do that, it's always advisable to engage in global communities, which we've spoken about. Personal branding is very important. I'm surprised we've not mentioned it earlier. So your LinkedIn profile is very, very important. So if, for instance, someone comes to your LinkedIn profile and you don't have insights into what you've done, your Azure experiences, certifications and all, they automatically assume that probably you do not know. But at a glance, if they see, oh, for instance, he's a lead systems engineer at EPAM, they already feel he's experienced enough. So all those kind of little things are important. So Dipanshu, what do you think about breaking out? So for instance, if I'm in Nigeria now and I want to break out, I want to get a job in India, for instance, or in Europe, for instance, what would you recommend to some of my Nigerian friends that are on the call? What would you recommend they do in terms of making themselves a better brand that is employable on the global scale?
Okay. So firstly, when you when you do something globally, that is get claimed, that is get recognized as something like doing an Microsoft MVP, be a part of Learning Champions. So yeah, that's something which is globally acclaimed. Like, it's not restricted to some region, say India or Nigeria. It is something which is globally accepted. Let's suppose even if I shift myself from India to Europe, or let it say be a US, that is something which will come along with me. It will not be restricted to my company. It will not be restricted to my whole region. So this is what, let's suppose I have colleagues working in US. That's all community. So it is something I can, it can particularly help me in building those relationships with the people who has even built the services. That is the most good thing. Like, I got to know some of the people who has built, who were the part of building the Azure platform itself in the Microsoft. And how you came to know them, that is from the community. So see how it would be pleasure to meet with the person who has built something which is being used by lakhs of people in the world, which is being entirely used by the globe. And how I came to do that? Using community. Be a part of that community itself. Secondly, you can also look for yourself to get shifted in remote locations and to these locations, not only restricted to your location. So when you have communities, you're part of community, you have a good branding, you can ask people to refer you, or you can particularly go there and start working also. Like I've seen a lot of my colleagues, fellow mates have done that. Like they had a very good personal branding on LinkedIn. They have been a part of the communities, they have interacted with the people, and there were some openings, and they just particularly so there is a lot of benefits in particularly both building your career and secondly gaining knowledge and advancing to that level.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think something also to add from my own experience is you have to learn as much as possible, because on the global scale, for instance, in Nigeria, you're competing with, there are 200 million people in Nigeria. Let's assume they are competing with 10 million tech people. That's just in Nigeria. So now assume the whole world where there's almost 1 billion people that are into technology and they are learning, they are improving. So the most important thing is always improve yourself, even if it is 30 minutes a day. So there is a statistic. So if you improve 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, that's almost an hour a day is about 365 hours in a year. Anybody that learns a particular thing for 365 hours a year has become an expert on that thing. So if you look at it that way, self-improvement is the most important thing from my own experience in terms of breaking out on a global scale, because they are not going to, for instance, in Nigeria, if someone from Europe wants to hire someone in Nigeria, he's not going to hire a junior engineer. He's going to hire somebody that they do not have in their country. They're going to hire someone that can do the job better than those that they have in their country. So I think it's quite important for us to look at what people in other places are doing. That's away from your local region in terms of a world scale, and improve yourself to get to that level. So I think for me, that's also very important as well. So that's what he said, Dipanshu. So yeah, then the open source is somewhere that is, of course, the open source is free. So you can always make changes to pull requests for open source projects. You can review them. When you're reviewing open source projects, you learn how those projects are structured, because open source projects are also structured very similarly to how production projects are structured. So from those projects, you can be able to learn. Of course, they are not production projects. They are production in a way, but they are open source. You may not have access to everything. Some you have access to everything, but within the open source, you can be able to learn new things as well. And you can be able to easily, so for instance, if you've contributed 100 times to the open source, on your resume, you can put it there that I've contributed to this project, to that project, to this project, my code is there. So those are the things that make you stand out as a global candidate. So yeah, in terms of that, I think I've covered basically everything. So this is a question a lot of people asked, so I decided to introduce it also to the webinar as well. Dipanshu is a Microsoft MVP, and many people have questions about how to become a Microsoft MVP and various things that they can do. So are you being paid, Dipanshu? Those are questions that I think people are curious about. If you're collecting, let's say, $100,000 to become a Microsoft MVP and things like that. So Dipanshu, it would be very lovely if you could take some time to let us know how your journey to become a Microsoft MVP, a lead system engineer, and an Azure community champion came to be.
Sure, I would be happy to do so. So firstly, to be very honest, there is no defined and straight path to be an MVP. So first thing is that, like, if I say for a certification, there is a path. You do this, you will get a certification. But for being an MVP, there is no straightforward path. But what, from my experience and what I could recommend, if you follow that, there is a likelihood and a highly chance that you be an MVP in the future. So what are the things? Firstly, we have to follow is perseverance, patience, and contribution, and firstly motivated. So what I followed, so being an MVP, which I see this, it has been a long journey of around 3+ years. I started around 3 years back when I started contributing to the community, and when I started particularly sharing whatever knowledge I had in whatever space. So let's suppose I was working in Azure. So I initially used to create VMs, I used to create some kind of virtual machine, storage account, and has some kind of solution building. So what I think, let's suppose this month I have developed this, I'm going to share it with the other, that these are the some best practice we should follow to do that. Slowly and gradually, I started taking out more time to do these kind of activities. Let's say I followed a principle of at least publishing one artifact per month. So if you do that, one artifact per month and at least 12 blocks, 12 technical blocks over a year. So this is something which I built over the years. So even in the first year, it was very, when I get nominated for MVP, I did not get this award. I did not felt say demotivated or something. I said, okay, this is something I need to keep on doing it. It is not something which I will get it first year itself, or it is not something which I will get in few times. I have to build it, I have to deliver it, then only there would be some acknowledgement happening around it. But of course, it happened that way. I shared around like 50 plus of articles over multiple forums like LinkedIn, Medium, on my own personal website, and also somewhere in my office space where there are different space where I could share that. So this is one thing. Secondly, you have to differentiate yourself. Let's say Dipanshu is there, and there is also a one person A. Let's say Abiola. So if we both are fighting for being an MVP, the evaluator will see how Dipanshu is doing better than Abiola, or how Abiola is doing better than Dipanshu. So you have to differentiate that path. Let's say if you see today, everyone is making videos, everyone is writing articles. But how I differentiated myself is I started doing other activities. Let's say I started driving Azure events. I started driving offline events, online events, and that in consistency. It is not like I did it for 3 months and then I stopped it for a month and then I continued it. No, I always did it in continuous for over the months and over the years. That is one of the things. And you also you have to create some paths. Let's say blocks, create videos, do offline events, do college events. You have to do very holistic approach in order to get this MVP. So MVP is basically how much you do your advocacy for Microsoft products and share your expertise. That is all about MVP. So if you ask an MVP evaluator, oh, I have to evaluate 10 profiles, and out of 10, I have to give one an MVP. So what I have to think? Out of 10, who's that one person who is doing different from other 9%? That is the only key. So if let's suppose all 9% are doing same thing, then maybe a chance there could be 11th person who was doing something different. Let's say he's creating some classrooms for Azure and doing on weekly basis and sharing those videos and events on open sources. That is something different. This is just for an example. So as much as advocacy of the expertise and of your knowledge and of Microsoft you will do, there is a high likelihood that you may get that prestigious award from the Microsoft. So, and I followed this for around 3 years. So even I got nominated last 2 years back, but I did not get it. Even last year I got nominated, but I did not get it. This year I got nominated and I received this prestigious award. Maybe one of the things they checked is consistency, that this person is particularly consistent over the years, not letting him down, not letting him stop sharing this knowledge or articles, and that may be the reason they have just found it. So that's my experience that I shared.
Okay, so can I ask, I'm sure people want to know as well, who nominated you, for instance?
So it was some from community, Q&A community. So I'm
Okay.
also doing Q&A. So they particularly saw my contribution over multiple forums, and they particularly asked me to share that I would like to nominate you. I said, okay, I'm more than happy to get nominated. Before 2 years, there was one colleague in my company who got that MVP. He nominated me. So every time there was some different person who has nominated me.
Interesting. Nice. So also, what are the benefits of being a Microsoft MVP?
That's the really very good thing. So for that, firstly, I would like to share my screen and show you. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
My bad that I could have done it before, but uh, Meanwhile, we can take some questions if coming.
Yeah, so I think someone said how realistic is learning DevOps within 6 months. So I would say at the end of the day, while the branch is, I think it
Mm.
depends on you. Basically, it
Yes.
depends on you. If you want to learn it within 6 months, of course, you will not become an expert. You will not become a lead systems engineer. You will not become a lead Azure engineer. But within those 6 months, you can develop yourself to the extent where you are employable. And being employable is the first step to expertise, because at that moment where you are employed, you get exposed to production environments. You get exposed to um technology that is serving people, basically. So if you understand how production environments work, then you start accumulating the experience. Of course, within 6 months, you are not going to become Dipanshu or Rosen or Omo or somebody who has done this thing for a lot of years, but you are going to become competitive, and you are going to understand everything that you've learned within that period. So you'll be far better within those 6 months than you were before you started. So a 6 month plan is not to become a senior engineer, it's to become an engineer, an employable engineer, basically, because you won't be employed without learning. I think that's the first thing to be clear about. You won't be employed without learning in the Azure space, because they are employing you to deliver value. So I think,
Yeah. At least you will get a basic knowledge, and you will get a how things work. That's one thing I could assure of. Like you will get some kind of basic knowledge.
okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So what?
Uh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you want to share your screen, or should I take the
Yeah.
next question? Okay,
Yes.
stop
Let me
sharing.
share my quickly. Let me know if you can share my see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is a Microsoft MVP website where we see all of the MVPs. Let's suppose if you want to search anyone, you can search that person here, and if he or she would be an MVP, you will see him. So let's suppose if you will type my name here, Dipanshu Katara, and search it, you will see me. It would be a single page description, 1 year in the program, country, company, what is my expertise. So yeah, a short introduction about myself. Now comes to the main thing. What are the benefits? So when it comes to an MVP, you get so much benefits. If you are keen to do that, if you are a keen learner, I think so the benefits would be less to do that. So if I say if you get a LinkedIn premium for a whole of the time you in the program, you will get a LinkedIn premium. You can use that for the time you being in the program. Also, you get Azure credits for your learning purpose. Let's say you get around $3,000, something like that, free credits that you can use for your own learning and purpose. So it is something you see the amount granted will be prorated based on your award date. If your award date is 3 months, you will receive up to 3,000 credit. So let's suppose $1,000 per month you get a credit to learn, and that is too much if you want to go with some basic or you want to do some kind of even a R&D, particularly in a month. Then you get GitHub Pro and Copilot for your GitHub account. Even I did not get a chance to claim it for now, but you also get a GitHub Pro and a Copilot. So basically, these are the licenses, which particularly comes after a lot of dollar amount of investment. But when you begin MVP, you get it for free. So it's around it's $100 of license which you get in free, and you can do a lot of learnings, a lot of R&D things using these benefits. A part of all that, you get MCP exam voucher. It is something like of a Microsoft certified program or something like a trainer exam, which you get it free. It is very, I think so, it is very costly when you go it otherwise, but this is also you get it free when you come with this being an MVP. So like you can claim 50% discount for an exam per year. It's very costly. What I know, around like $1,000 it is, but you get it around 50% discount also. So this is also one of the benefit. Then you get an award kit. I will show you how it feels. Just if I could show you quickly that I have some images with me. So this you get this beautiful trophy delivered directly at your home. This yeah, this is the Some this beautiful trophy disc. You will get it from the Microsoft. See, and you get a certificate. You get a award certificate like this. MVP, Dipanshu Katara, Satya Nadella, like all of this. You get then. You get a badge. You get whole of lot of things. Like even you don't get a time. Lot of time you have to do saying, okay, this is all I've got. So a lot of thing you get a part of all this. So
So
yeah, uh, yeah,
yeah, go ahead. So in terms of the impact generally, so from what I've seen you've said so far, you get a lot of individual benefits that you could use as well. But I also think another thing that is important is the prestige and networking, because obviously if you
of
get to that
course,
stage, you
of
you
course,
you are respected within the community and
of
various
course,
things
of
like that.
course,
So yeah,
of
there's
course.
that as
So
well.
of course, so you get
Yeah,
enough respect, recognition, reward through, and that too globally.
yeah, yeah, that's important as well.
And
So I think someone,
one more
yeah,
thing,
go
Abid,
ahead.
I would like to add. So you get an invite to be part of MVP Summit that happens yearly in US, and that is self-sponsored, but it is a 2 day or 3 day event that happens. But being an MVP, you get their name written over there and get that invitation to be part of.
So are you going this year or next year?
Next year, I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, that's
that's
fine.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, so someone asked a question. I do not have any money to learn Azure in Nigeria, even in subscription. How can I learn quickly to scale up? I think this is a specific question to Nigeria, but I don't know if Dipanshu has any contribution to that as well. So if person doesn't have any money to learn Azure in Nigeria, even in terms of subscription, how can he learn quickly?
So money is not something which can, what I think is, can stop anyone learning Azure. So if you are a student, you get some credits. If not, you can start with some labs. As I said, you don't need to go with Azure portal. You can follow the learn path where you can do a real-time lab. For that, you do not require a money. You just have to do those learn and follow that. And there are a lot of open sources documents in on YouTube, or let's say on LinkedIn, or let's say on Medium, or many other people has published a lot of websites. You can follow them and gain a certain basic level of knowledge. But yeah, to answer that, if you need to go beyond that to an expert level or something which you, then I think so you may need some financial support. But gaining a basic and a decent level of knowledge, you do not require much money. Abiola, to you, please.
Yeah, I think you've said it all. So most times using free resources is always ignored because on YouTube, I would say this may be wrong, but I would say there's basically nothing in terms of technology you cannot find on YouTube. People always want to teach other people. So you would find everything you're looking for on YouTube. Even in terms of the professional space, there are some times where you don't know what you're looking for. And you just go on YouTube and you find out that somebody else has done it. So even as a student, it's something that you should leverage, not always for fun, but also for learning. So I would say leverage YouTube is quite important as well, and Microsoft Learn. So yeah. Someone also asked, I always fail tech interviews. How can I get a remote job? So I don't know the bunch if you could take that as well.
So you have to prepare for tech interviews accordingly. So uh, you have to go with the what I feel is for the JD. Let's suppose if your JD is for cloud engineering system role, you have to particularly prepare yourself as per the standard JD, and then you have to particularly you have it's so you have it's not every time if you are failing there is something you have to work. There is something that is happening wrong. This is true. So you have to work on that, and it's not like that if it is some kind of you need an incubation, if some kind of training, try to go for that. Create a plan. Means what I have always done is it's never get afraid of fail. I don't know, but it does not mean that I will not know it after a few months. I will work for it. I will give some time to it. I will put efforts. I will need it because it's end of the day technology, which has been already built by humans, not from someone else. So think that way that it's fine if you are getting failed, but just create some sort of strategy, some sort of plan to overcome that. If you have failed 5 interviews, what I will do at your stage, I will see all the recordings of 5. I will pick out some 5 common mistakes I made. I will work on those 5 common mistakes whenever I go for the next interview. And if I see, okay, I haven't made my 5 mistakes, what is the next mistake I made? Okay, this is a new mistake. That is fine. I will recover. I can bet you, like 3/4 interview, you will be like a perfect. You will not make any more mistakes, and you will be you will be good to get selected. So something what I believe you're not doing that thorough analysis and a strategy to get succeed for that interview, even it's for remote or but if there is something particular, we can discuss in person.
Okay, thank you. So to add to that as well, so I would say there was a point I applied for like 3 years ago. I applied for close to, I was checking my LinkedIn, I applied for close to 1,000 jobs. I probably got about 3, 4, 5 interviews. I got one job,
Yes.
but I got like 3, 4, 5 interviews. So most times when I speak to people and we talk about what is going wrong, yeah, I applied. You applied to 2 jobs, you applied to 3 jobs. And most of all the jobs are usually remote jobs. If you're applying to 2 or 3 jobs, so there are different things you need to consider. Even those 5 interviews you're going to get, you may get to the final stage and you are the best at what you want to do, but they want to recruit somebody internally. So you cannot put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to recruitment. There are various factors that get involved. So failing interviews is not like a damning verdict on your person. Everybody, I'm sure
Right.
everybody on this call has probably failed interviews.
Right.
So, and when you fail interviews, it's important to just take stock, like Dipanshu mentioned, see what you could have said better and ensure that like in the next one, you are at least it's beyond your control. So even if they say you fail, you know, oh, okay, there's literally nothing you could have done better. So I think that's where it is. Application is the first step. If you don't buy that ticket, you cannot win the lottery. So you always have to apply. Even if you feel you are not fully qualified, you are just qualified for 60, 70% of the role, still apply. Sometimes interviewers look at your enthusiasm, your malleability, culture fit, different ways you can fit into the team is quite important as well. So it's not always about technical ability as well. So I think that fear factor, once that fear factor is gone, then from my own personal experience, last year I left my previous company surprisingly, and at that moment in time, so previously, if I applied for jobs, I was always getting rejection. But when I took it seriously and started applying, thankfully something else came up very quickly. And previously it wasn't like that. But when I put my mind into it and I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. So I literally was applying for about 150 jobs per day, qualified, not qualified, some city. I applied for CTO roles. I know I'm not ready for a CTO role at this stage in my career, but I applied for CTO roles. So you still have to, that application point is very important. And yeah, I think that's the only addition I can add to what Dipanshu said regarding this. So do we have any other questions? So we'll not go over time since it's just about a minute to the end of everything. Okay. Afosi, I think that thing is a very huge limitation. So some jobs want you to be in Europe. For those kind of jobs, I think there's very little one can do about that, because even from the HR stage, the you would have been filtered out once they see your location that, for instance, you're in a country where that job is not employing. So, but of course, you can still try. So I would say to get remote jobs from Nigeria, considering the fact that some jobs don't require that, some jobs require that you need to be in Europe. I think the main thing is you have to focus on those other jobs that don't require you need to be in Europe. So you also have to focus on jobs. There's jobs that don't apply, that don't require you need to be in Europe. So those are the ones that you need to focus on at this stage, because there's nothing we can do about moving to Europe. If you are not present in Europe, you are not present in Europe, and there's very little we can do about that. But there are some jobs that offer visa relocation, which we can always apply to. There are very nice sites. I think there are sites that I think we could share afterwards. I'll probably create a document on that and share those afterwards to anyone who's interested. There is relocate.me, there's remote.co, various sites, and you'd see some jobs are willing to offer you visa sponsorship. And also, I think those are the jobs that, as an individual that is not in the country of the source of the job, we have to apply to, rather than those that, of course, you apply for all. Some jobs can look at your profile and say, oh, okay, this job is in Europe and this guy is technically excellent. I'm willing to bring you down from Nigeria to Europe. So there's always that point as well. So I think that's basically it. But if the job is not applying in the country where you are, I would say in that situation, there is nothing you can do about it. You can only apply and pray, or maybe be optimistic about it, but there's very little you can do. So yeah, if I don't know if there are any further questions, comments. There are no further questions, comments. Dipanshu, do you have any other thing you want to say?
No, I think so. I shared my experience, journey, and if I have to give a closing statement, so guys, being an MVP or being an expert is something anyone can be. So it is just what I said. You just have to work for it. You have to be have some patience and have that continuity of perseverance of doing it. And of course, once you do it for a while, it will definitely take some stand, and it definitely takes some recognition outside. So that's all. You just have this, and I already shared my journey. So it's, as I said, not of a one day, it's of the years. So similarly, if you are looking for that something, start working from the day one, and of course, it the day will come. You will get rewarded for that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you
Okay, so
for being a wonderful audience. Thank you, Abiola, for bringing me for this wonderful session. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, so I guess if there are no further questions, we'll be bringing the call to a close. It was really lovely speaking with you guys. And Dipanshu, thank you for joining us today. So,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone. We're bringing the call to a close. Cheers, guys.
Guys,
Have
bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All
bye,
right,
guys.
bye.